Does this bottle prove that the Kirkland brand is worth the hype? Let's find out. Today we're doing a review of Kirkland Signature Bottled in Bond whiskey. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So that's right, today we're doing a review of Kirkland Signature Bottled in Bond whiskey. Just recently I put out a review of the Kirkland Signature small batch whiskey, which I thought was pretty solid, especially considering the price of $19.99 for a liter. But this bottle, by all accounts, steps it up a notch, probably in terms of age, but also in terms of prestige, and it seems that most reviewers, most people who have tasted both, lean heavily toward this bottled in bond expression. So let's dive in, let's see what we're taking a look at here with this bottled in bond release. So just like the small batch, it comes in a liter, which is bigger than the usual 750 milliliters, so you're getting more bang for your buck. Price-wise here, it's about 26 bucks is what I got this for. And then bottled in bond just means that it has to be at least 4 years old, has to be 100 proof, and has to be distilled all in one distilling season by one distiller. When it comes to Kirkland brand, that one distiller is Barton 1792 Distillery. So that is a well-regarded, very solid brand. And in fact, when it comes to 1792 small batch versus bottled in bond, I am a huge proponent of the bottled in bond. The 1792 bottled in bond, for some reason, just hits my palate right and is just really, really, really solid whiskey. So I'm really excited and hopeful that this one is going to prove to be that for me, especially over time. If I could get this released once a year and kind of get my hands on a pseudo 1792 bottled in bond, that would be phenomenal. All right, let's dive in on the nose, palate, and finish, everybody. Kirkland bottled in bond. Whoa, okay. So I've opened up this bottle, let it breathe, and it's sweet, man. It is banana runts, maraschino cherry, kind of that real candied cherry sweetness. There was some of that in the small batch, kind of a similar DNA here, but definitely a darker undertone as well. A little bit more oak. Not nearly as much. I feel like I got more nut, a little bit more grain on the small batch. This one's got a little bit more rounded. Still a little punchy though, with some ethanol, but with some oak and spice underneath. All right, jumping out of the glass for sure. I think the presence here is strong in terms of the aromas I'm getting. I don't have to dig for them, they're really coming out. It's just very candy sweet. All right, let's go in on the palate here and taste this whiskey. Cheers, everybody. Well, that's pretty dang nice. That had a good amount of sweetness up front, a little bit of spice kick in the middle, with kind of an oaky roundedness in the middle as well. Spice kind of lingers. Toward the back end, I'm getting a lot of vanilla, banana, pudding kind of qualities. I used to get these little pudding cups, and they would have a layer of vanilla and a layer of banana, and you could mix those together, and that's kind of what the finish here is. But yeah, it really started off sweet with some of that cherry, some of that candy, banana runt as well, some vanilla. Then it gets a little bit darker and rounded in the middle with some spice, and then I feel like it goes back to a little bit of the oak stays, but the banana pudding note is pretty strong there for me. All right, let's go in for a second sip now that we've got it on the palate and see if we can pick apart some more flavors. Cheers. Okay. Yeah, that sip tended a little bit darker for me. Even as I brought the glass up to sip it, I actually got a waft of cinnamon spice. So a little bit richer, darker kind of spice coming through. Almost like a cinnamon bun waft, which is cool. And then I think the palate showed that off. A little bit of a chocolate note. Something a little darker there, and then good amount of oak. Some spice. A little bit tannic, a little bit bitter on that sip, but not too bad. Just overall, I feel like that was a darker sip, and then a little bit of that banana pudding and vanilla sticks around for me on the back end. But cool to see that that one went a little darker and spicier. More of a dried, darker cherry, kind of as a fruit note in there as well. So first sip, much sweeter, a little bit of spice, and very like vanilla banana forward. Second sip definitely showed a little bit more of that oaky profile that they were saying was going to be there on the back of the bottle there. So pretty solid, not the greatest mouthfeel, solid enough though, and enough heft there to kind of stick with you for a little bit. So overall, very, very solid so far. Let's go in for our third sip here. We'll evaluate the whole experience and the finish, and I'll let you guys know my final thoughts. Cheers. Nice. That sip I feel like brought together both of the two previous sips. So there was some of that vanilla banana cherry up front with a more light cherry. Some of the darker spice and oak and cinnamon came through in the middle. And then it kind of faded out into an oaky vanilla and a little bit of that banana pudding kind of note to finish, which is nice. I do think here that just like the small batch had a pretty short finish. This one I'd put solidly medium, so certainly longer than the small batch, but not the longest finish in the world. There is basically nothing offensive here, is how I would put it. Really, really solid whiskey, nothing super special, but for 26 bucks and a liter, that's a pretty good deal. That's pretty solid stuff. In terms of how does it compare in my mind to like a 1792 Bottled in Bond that I have, I'd have to taste them side by side, which I can do and might do just as a comparison for you guys. It's a great idea for a future video. I'll note that down. So I want to do that, but just off memory, I feel like the 1792 Bottled in Bond had a little more darker espresso notes that I really gravitated towards. This one tends a little bit lighter and brighter. It has enough oak, enough dark cherry in there as well mixed in to make it a more well-rounded whiskey than the small batch in my opinion. But it's not quite maybe as dark and rich as the 1792 Bottled in Bond. But in any case, I definitely need to compare this directly to the small batch, and I'd love to compare it directly to the 1792 Bottled in Bond as well. But on its own, Kirkland Signature Bottled in Bond, definitely enjoying it from memory, better than the small batch. I think it's really quite solid whiskey, especially when you consider it's like 25, 26 bucks. I think this would beat out quite a lot in that category. It's just a very well presented whiskey, nothing offensive about it, and quite enjoyable overall. All right, everybody, I think that's gonna wrap it up. While I still have you, if you are not subscribed yet and enjoying all the content coming out of the channel, would love to have you aboard for the rest of 2023 and beyond. Also, leave a like on the video, helps get it out to more people. And again, put in the comments below. Would love to hear what your experience has been with the Kirkland brand so far, especially this Bottled in Bond product. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.